Welcome to another episode of the Elite Agent Masterclass. Today, we're going to be talking all things fees and conversion. We have a special guest with us today. Chris Poole from our business, The Avenue, has been Mr. Consistent when it comes to attracting clients at the premium end of the market, but equally getting fantastic fees at the same time. So welcome, Chris. How are you?
I am okay. Thank you very much. I'm a little cold because the weather's cold, but I'm okay.
I must admit, in my office today, I've had to. We had a call earlier. I've had to get the heater in because I was shivering.
Yeah.
But, how are you, Jack?
Very good, very good. Good to have Chris on as well. Like you said, Chris has done an amazing job of getting some very attractive fees into the business, which I think is because of how he's able to show his value. But I'm hoping Chris can give us a bit more of an insight into how he manages to do that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So the idea is showcasing to those listening and watching what it is you do, Chris, what processes you go through. We don't want to give away all your secret sauce, of course, but just how is it, just to give some context here, your average fee is around 2 to 2.5%, and the average property that you're managing at the minute sits just over £1 million in value. So what has been your process? Give us a little bit of a behind the scenes.
Okay. So the key thing I always aim to do is develop a relationship with my vendors or prospective vendors, and that's the key thing I work on. And then the other thing, and I spoke to Jack about this before, is try and make sure that I do at least one thing that I am 150% sure no other agent would ever do. They either wouldn't think about doing it, or they think it was too extreme, or it'd be outside of their field of even thought. So whether that's, actually getting in the car and taking the vendors to another property that they're interested in, having a chat with them in your car about it, stuff like that, taking to their onward viewings, etc. So, or whether it's, doing a CGI for them of their property and showcasing what it could look like to future buyers,
And just for context, that is before you've even gone on the appointment, isn't it? That's not post-appointment or you've been instructed. You're doing that before you even go.
Could be, yeah. So having a WhatsApp conversation with them, looking, especially with ChatGPT these days, there's so much help that you can get. In terms of, just having a look at their floor plans, sending them over floor plans, double checking, does that look accurate? What do you think? Have you changed it much since, because you can get floor plans for most properties these days, can't you? From when it was like, so looking at that, potential property descriptions, depends on what floats their boat and what motivates them. Some people are quite, I know you are, James, quite wordy. They like stuff like that, giving them a really descriptive, arty, poetic, before you've even got there, property description. And sometimes, they start editing it for you before you've even got, I like that, Chris. You know what I mean? I'm not sure about the start, and I love the middle. Let's change it. They're already in this path with you, and also it's not a them and us thing anymore. It's what are we going to do together to get your property sold? How are we going to make it look as good as it possibly can do? How are we going to tweak it? What are buyers going to love about it? What do you love about it? And it's trying to get into that mindset with them, so that the only thing they're really thinking about is not whether they're going to come on the market with me, but what we're going to do together to get it sold, and what we're going to, it's trying to add a little bit of excitement, I guess, as well. I have a quirky sense of humor, and buyers buy into that. They like that. They like the fact I'll send them some weird gifts about, you know what I mean, on the WhatsApp group, just funny things. If it's a Sunday night, trying to, on a Sunday night, I might send them something at 6 o'clock when no one else is working. You know what I mean? Whether that's a floor plan or a little funny, whatever it might be, just to try and make them aware we are 24/7 business. We're not a 9 to 5 business. You know what I mean? And it's just these little things that hopefully just underline the fact that we are something a little bit special, a little bit different, and we go the extra mile where no one else will. And for the vendors that decide to come on the market with us, they love that, and that's what they buy into.
I think the passion and the excitement and the enthusiasm absolutely oozes out of you. I asked you one question. It's like you've just gone into complete like enthusiasm mode, but that clearly then translates into the relationship with the client. No matter what's going on for you external to the relationship with that person, they're still going to get that version of Chris where they're like, this guy is just all over absolutely everything. He's passionate, he's infused. And that goes a long way to the relationship, doesn't it? Because people aren't going to entrust their biggest asset to someone who isn't infused, who isn't passionate, who hasn't got a plan. But there is a structure. A lot of you just said there feels ad hoc. There is definitely a structure to what you do as well, isn't there?
Yeah, there is a structure. I'm what's the word? I'm oh god, what's
spontaneous?
The word? Yeah, I'm quite a spontaneous sort of guy, and or intuitive. That's the word I'm looking for. I'm quite an intuitive kind of guy. So I try and read the person that I'm dealing with, and therefore, although there is a structure, it's a very fluid structure. You know, it is about being 100% prepared. So normally before I go, well, definitely before I go to the valuation, but even before I call them, I do try and be 100% prepared. You know, I've already done the obvious stuff like Street View, had a look at their property, had a look at Sprift, had a look at Home Search, found out when the property was last sold. If they're running a business, you know, have a little look on, you know, what their business is like and what the turnover is, and we'll have a look at their WhatsApp.
But you did just say all of this was obvious, Chris. I think there's probably 3 or 4 things you've reeled off there that aren't obvious. And I think that's the difference. Is subconsciously to you, it's like that's the mode you go into and you just do it. Whereas I think for others listening, there are things you've reeled off there where they'd be like, light bulb moment, I don't do that. Or light bulb, I don't prepare that well before I have the call. Or, because I don't know about you, but you've just said something there that I think about when I'm doing the pre-valuation conversation piece. If they call me, I will try and create a positioning in that conversation where I can either buy for time to prepare while I'm on the phone call, or if there's the opportunity to delay that call to a little bit later in the day, but get the information I need beforehand to then call them back so that you can have that prepared conversation rather than on the fly. Oh, yeah, okay, you want to book a valuation, and then it's just that routine of what's your address, what's your number, what's your email, and it can have your surname.
I mean, we've all got strengths and weaknesses, and part of my weakness, which Jack will probably laugh at, but it is true, like answering the phone to cold calls is not something that I'm really good at. We're all good at different things, but I'm good at thinking on my feet, but I hate to be unprepared. And when I get a phone call from someone out of the blue and they say, you know, Chris, you dropped a leaflet through my door 6 months ago. Like, I just want you to, you know, pick up the conversation now. And I'm in the car driving. I've got no idea what the leaflet was. I don't know where the house is they dropped it through, but they think it's obvious, but because they think I've only dropped the leaflet through their door. So that's why I do like particularly to be prepared. I hate being caught out, and none of us like to be to feel foolish, do we? And sometimes if I'm unprepared, I can feel like I'm not at my best. So sometimes I will deliberately maybe not answer a call that Jack will say, why do you answer that? Like, but I may not answer a call because I know it's a call that's coming through from someone I want to be prepared for before I speak to them. And 9 times out of 10, that does work out advantageous for me.
You mentioned a lot there, Chris, and I know we've spoken about this over the past few weeks, really trying to understand your process and how you're able to deliver and secure such great fees. So would you say the preparation is one of the most important things? And the second question I was going to ask is, which you touched on it a little bit earlier, when you're going out to meet with these clients for the first time, potentially, is it a case of you're quite confident that they're going to instruct before you've even got there? They've already maybe made their decision, or do you feel as though you're trying to win that business when you get to meet them for the first time? Because you've done so much in the lead up to that with the preparation you've done.
I always try to go in with the mindset of it's not a matter of whether you're going to instruct me. It's just a matter of when you're going to instruct me, not if, but when. Like, and you know what? Sometimes I'm even mindful of. I might be like, you know what? They may go on the market with Hankinson Harrison for the next 6 months. I'm all right with that. They probably won't sell it, and then you'll come back to me. And that helps in terms of, because I know that we're expensive as an estate agent, and sometimes people like to try the cheap route first. And you know what? They might sell it, they might not. But I'm always of the mindset that we're the best agent out there. And if you don't sell it with the next agent you go on with, if it's not with me, you will then come back to me afterwards. And that's where the nurturing and keeping in touch with them is really so important. Following them through their journey, not just with me and us, but maybe following them on their journey with their agent they do go on with, because let's face it, some people just think, I'm not paying 2% fee or a 3% fee when I can go with Purple Bricks for next to nothing, or Strike or Chosen, or even a high street agent that's 1%. And I get that. I'm pragmatic. I understand we are expensive, but they'll then come back to me. 2/3 of those will come back to me afterwards if they don't sell it, because they'll think, you know what, Chris, you didn't make us feel awkward because we went on with a different agent. You understood that, the way the world works, but now I haven't sold it. I've decided to come back to you. And that's important to me as well.
I think that the confidence piece, and we touched on it just before we actually started recording the episode, confident and mindset features a lot in terms of being able to secure really good fees. And this question is probably for both of you, because I struggled, I suppose, when we first launched the business, coming from a very low fee charging model, very high volume model, but very low fees. It took me quite a while to change my mindset. Whereas James, I think from the start, you were quite comfortable knowing and delivering quite strong fees. And Chris, the same for you. As soon as you stepped in from coming from Purple Bricks straight over to the Avenue, it didn't take long at all for you to transition into securing really strong fees. So what is it for the people listening and watching? What is it that you could give to them or advise them on how to get that mindset right to be able to have the confidence of delivering good and strong fees?
I do think part of what we do is, when you think of, so we present to camera when we do our videos, don't we? We do some great and fun presenting work. I think sometimes you have to be prepared to do a bit of role playing. And even if you're not in yourself of the mindset of, I'm an agent that can charge 3%, you've got to role play someone who is an agent that's the best at what they do, the best in the world, and charges 3%. And it's a bit like the fake it before you can make it bit. You know what I mean? There is a little bit of that in it, but I enjoy the role playing bit. I like doing the videos that we do. It's a bit of fun for me. I enjoy the role playing bit, and a bit like when I go into evaluation, that's my opportunity to be the best estate agent in the whole world for the next 2 hours. And I get to be that person, and I love it. And what does that person do, and how do they talk, and how do they, talk about their business and how they work and what they'll do for their clients? And you know what? You might step out of the property afterwards, and you think, "Whew, oh my God, that was a little bit scary." But you do get a bit of adrenaline rush. I'm the same as everybody else. I said to Emily, I was sat on Little Aston Park private estate last year, and you feel like the imposter syndrome. Like, I'm surrounded by £2 and £3 million houses. I'm going to go and value this general surgeon's property, and they're looking at another £2 or £3 million house. And you do get a bit of imposter syndrome, where you think like, "Whoa, this is scary. I'm just little old Chris. Like, I'm way out." But when you get in that house, you realise that the people that you're dealing with, they're all human, just like you and me. And they've just got a house that they want to sell, and they want some really good advice from someone that's honest, knows what they're doing, is competent, confident, and is going to be genuine. And they don't. Is it fair to say the higher value properties with those vendors, maybe they're a little bit more switched on, and they can see a fool, they can see someone that's trying to pull the wool over their eyes quite early. So you've got to be prepared to be genuine. Although you're role playing, you've got to get the balance right between role playing and also just not talking rubbish. You know what I mean? So the role play is about the inner confidence, the feeling that what we do is brilliant. It's not about talking rubbish. It's just about your mindset when you get in there. And that's what I think. And people let's be honest, if you've got a choice between selling your property with an agent that's really confident and competent in what they do, and one that's a little bit unsure, and I don't know what you're going to get for it, and is it all right if I charge you 1%? Because I know it's a lot of money. No one wants that, do they? You're just going to go, no. I'd rather pay 2% for someone that knows what they're doing.
I agree with pretty much everything you've said there, Chris. And the question that Jack said was that transition from where we were to where we are now. I think there's a few things for me that feed on top of what you might well have said there. And I think if you are going to command a premium, I think the brand that you create needs to support that. So whether that be the brand you align yourself with or the personal brand that you build, it needs to align with that. You need to be you need to portray what it is that you represent and the standards and the values that you uphold. So I think that also needs to feed through. Respectfully, there isn't going to be a huge demographic of clientele that sits in the premium end of the market that are going to gravitate to the cheap online estate agents, because generally speaking, if we're generalizing here, the people that live in those types of properties have ascended to a certain status in society and they therefore appreciate a certain value. As long as they appreciate the value, it's not about being expensive or cheap, it's about the value proposition. That's the difference. And so I suppose if you're aligned with a brand or you've created a personal brand that makes you look like you're a 2 up, 2 down, first time seller type of estate agent, then the likelihood of you ever commanding the premium fees and going after the premium properties is quite low. And so I think it starts there with the brand that you align yourself and the brand you create for yourself. I also think it's about that, like Chris has said, that internal message, that internal dialogue that you tell yourself. Even when we were at Purple Bricks and I was listing houses for clients and they were paying us, what was it, £999 and then a £300 viewing package fee, I was looking at that, and the way I processed it was these people are getting a £10,000 estate agent for £1,299. They're getting someone who's going to give them a £1,000 service for almost a tenth of the cost. And so all I did was translate that mindset. I'm now getting paid what I'm worth. And it's about my self-worth. I think it's also about having a level of self-worth and believing that you are worth more. I believe, and this can't be validated, but I believe that I am the best choice of estate agent for any client that I come into contact with. Yeah. I am the best choice. No one is going to outwork me. Nobody is going to outmarket me. No one is going to out-negotiate me. So therefore, I'm doing this person a disservice by not making myself first choice.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with all of that. And just an interesting little anecdote that might fit quite well. So I bought a property. I'm not going to name the property, but I bought a property on the market with Purple Bricks.
I was going to mention this exact story because it reminds me that there's a lot of similarities in what you both said. But I don't remember which property you named to.
No. So I won't share the address. On the market with Purple Bricks, whatever it was, £900 fee, blah, blah, blah. Sold it, the sale fell through. I then moved over to the Avenue. They came to me and said, Chris, you want to sell our house again? I said, look, I'm now no longer with Purple Bricks. I'm with the Avenue. And our fee is at that time. So my fee was 1% with them. That's what I agreed. And the property was like 800 grand. It was an £8,000 fee. It was all right. Put it on the market. So they'd then gone from £900 to £8,000 in terms of fee, because that's what I was worth to them. They wanted to be with me. We then put that property on the market, sold it. The buyers then pulled out, very frustratingly, quite late into the sale. So the property then came off the market. A year later, they came back to me, still with the Avenue, and said, Chris, we now want to put it back on the market. I said, that's fine, but our fees have now gone from 1% to 2%. I said, that's fine. We want you to sell our house. So the fee went from Purple Bricks £900 to the Avenue £16,000. That property is now sold subject to contract. That's, for me, if that's a bit of an anecdote of what I'm worth to them, then that's the little thing I was trying to remember in my head. You know what? It wasn't about fee. It was about value for money, and I'm value for money for them.
And I think, and that is, if there's one piece that people can get away from this where they recondition themselves, is it's not about cost, it's about value. And the two things are different. They're completely different. Yeah. And so, I think that's really, really important to convey. It's all about fees and conversion, this episode. I think we've talked about what we're achieving as a collective. We've talked about some of the processes, but are there any other little golden nuggets, Chris? And I suppose, as our special guest, we're angling this a lot at you because of the way you position yourself. We've even integrated some of your pre-valuation processes into the way in which we coach future partners within the avenue because it's that good. But are there any other little golden nuggets? You say build a relationship with these people, but distill it. What does that mean? I know you look for things. Talk to us about, like, do you remember the sports car guy that you did a viewing with? And you told me the story about what you then did and how you communicated with him. It was a Lamborghini he had, and he was away on a holiday in Italy or something.
Yeah. So yeah, he's a nice guy, and he's got 5 Lamborghinis, including the Lamborghini Countach, the original one, so £1 million property. So he got in contact with me and wanted to view one of our properties, and as per usual, I WhatsApped him, and I noticed on his WhatsApp that he'd got a Lamborghini on there. So I knew he was probably a car nut. So then we, as well as talking about the property he wanted to view, and I also knew he had a property to sell, we then started talking on a WhatsApp about Lamborghinis. And then he shared with me he's going on a car trip. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's going to Italy. He's taking his Lamborghini with him. Anyway, he got to Italy, and I was still WhatsApping him, having a bit of chat about stuff because he wanted to view my property when he came back. And I noticed he got the reg on one of his little WhatsApp photos. And I just, again, another little thing, put the reg in, found out what the car was exactly, and then started having a conversation with him about his Lamborghini Aventador LP 650 PZS, blah, blah, blah. He then thought I was the most amazing car nut on the planet. So, and then you just start talking, and it's just, we had so much conversation about nothing about houses, but just about cars and what he was doing and how great they are, and blah, blah, blah. And it's all part of building a rapport. And at some point, this guy's going to put his house on the market with someone. I'm fairly sure who it's going to be. And it's about helping him and helping him on his journey to find a property he wants to buy as well.
I think that's so important. I feel like that shows how much you care. It's not just a transaction. There's so much more to it, and by doing that, you going out your way to find out a bit of common ground, and also do some research to find something that he's interested in that you can discuss and talk about. Just shows how much it is more than just a transaction, how much you care about helping him.
Yeah,
the results that he's looking to achieve.
It's try. I was just going to say, just trying to find little things that that fit for both of us. So the car thing was a natural one. The other one was when I looked him up on Company's House, he was a director of, I think, 9 companies, and they're all care homes. So that's another little thing. So my wife's a district nurse, a general practice nurse now, was a district nurse. My mom sadly's got dementia. So, the home thing is something. So it's trying to find little bits that fit, you know what I mean, where you can pick up the conversation and you can gel together. And that, I think, is something that's quite important to bear in mind as well. It is about building relationships.
I think the interesting thing here, so as we all know, we go through a process of disc profiling. So for those that aren't familiar, disc profiling is understanding people's personality profile. It doesn't give you an exact measure of a person, but it does give you a good understanding as to how they interact, how they are in social situations, how they present, and so on. And obviously, Chris, you're a high CD. Jack, you're a DI, and I'm an ID. But interestingly, we spoke about this the other day, and I do think this feeds into you. Both of you sit on the personality profile on the top. I sit on the bottom. Top is more task oriented. Bottom is more people. Jack and I discussed this the other day. As an I naturally go into my default mode when I meet new people, and that is that I want them to like me. I want to get on with them. I want to find common ground. It's that whole I want to make you my friend type approach. Whereas Jack's a high D, which is therefore more dominant, more direct, and so on. And so therefore goes more on the route of they're going to trust him because of the way he delivers, the way he prepares. And I think you're very similar. People will naturally trust you both because of how prepared you are and how direct you can be with the delivery of your message. So it's interesting that you're talking about building relationship, whereas I look at it and go, I now don't need people to like me because that's my default mode. So therefore it's not a given that it's going to happen, but I feel that I can make that happen just by virtue of my character. But what I focus on is I don't need them to like me, but they absolutely have to trust me.
Yeah.
They won't do business with someone they don't trust, but they probably would do some business with someone they trust but don't necessarily like all that much. Whereas you guys both talk about building really strong relationships. And I find it fascinating that you're both a very similar profile and you naturally build trust. And the thing I wanted to make sure that we absolutely covered in this episode was that people liking you isn't as important as them trusting you. But by default of the types of people that you are, you will build trust naturally. So therefore you focus more on the relationship and the liking side.
Yeah. No, I agree. Funnily enough, I got a contract signed this morning from a vendor. And I've been doing all of my so new instruction, all of my WhatsApp stuff like we've been talking about, etc. When I was there this morning talking to her, she said, "Oh, all your WhatsApp stuff, Chris, I'll be really honest, I just ignore it. So it's just not for me." The husband was there as well. Dennis is there as well, and he's like going, "Oh my god!" Like because Dennis does all the talking with me on the WhatsApp group, and the other vendor, the wife, I should have said her name then. She then just ignores everything. But the point I was trying to make, she trusts me. She doesn't necessarily like everything I do. Some of the humour bit was a bit like, I'm not sure, but she knows I'm good at selling houses. She knows I'm good at marketing houses. So it doesn't, and that's where the like and the trust bit came in for me. Didn't necessarily like me 100%, but she trusts me and knows I'm good at what I do.
And as I say, we've there's some gold that's been shared in the episode, but I just wanted to make sure that we had that balance for those that are listening, because a lot of estate agents, in my humble opinion, they focus so heavily on getting the client to like them, and then they turn around a week later and they've lost the listing. And they're like, "But I got on so well with them," but they only look at it in isolation of them. They don't go, well, every estate agent's going through that door, and by virtue of the fact that the industry is so poor at training that actually most estate agents are relying on people liking them. It's almost a reliance, isn't it? So I got on so well, but someone else got on better, and you had nothing of value or discernible difference that made the customer trust or gravitate towards you more. And I think that's the big thing for you, Pear, is your natural ability is trust. People will naturally gravitate towards you for that.
Yeah.
I think that's a good transition as well into the conversion piece. We spoke a lot at the start around the fees, but this is really starting to unpick how you're able to convert. I think firstly, they need to know who you are. Then they need to like you, but it's so important that they trust you to be able to convert that into a relationship where they're going to be working with you long term.
The like and trust bit is interesting. I want to get to a point where I'm on the valuation with them, that the relationship is strong enough so that I can say to them, for example, I know you've had 3 other valuations. Have any of the other estate agents told you that your house smells of dog? Now, that's quite an emotive thing to say or share. But if they trust me enough by that point, there's 2 things. One is they know I'm honest enough to give them honest feedback on what might affect the sale of their property. The other thing is sometimes it undermines the other agents that haven't been honest enough to give them real straight feedback. And that is something you've got to be prepared to do. Be honest with them, and they've got to be prepared to listen to what you have to say and treat you as the professional.
Do you think as well it's easier for you to have that honest conversation because of the work that you've done in the lead up to that?
100%. Could not do it otherwise. They just think I was a rude so-and-so. How dare you tell me my house smells of dog? But if you've built up that relationship and you get there, then you're at a point where I think they'll say, you know what, it's not what I wanted to hear necessarily, but I respect the fact that you've told me that, and now I know I've got a little bit of work to do before we put it on the market.
I think I've got this theory, and again, can't necessarily be proved, but again, it's how I work. On every appointment I go on, I work on this same theory, and it's a case of when, let's for argument's sake, say someone Googles estate agents in their local community and they just pick the first 3 that come up on the list, and we're called the Avenue, so we obviously come up quite high, right? And so on the scale of 0 to 10 at that point, the 0 to 10, 0 is they know absolutely nothing and you've got no chance of them listing with you. 10 is it's an absolute nailed on listing and they're going to recommend you to absolutely anyone that they can possibly come into contact with, right? And so that's the scale. I always work on that scale of, before I get to that appointment, I will do what I need to do to get them to at least a 5 on that scale, right? So that when I go to the appointment, in my mind, a 7 or an 8 is actually as far as you need to go to win the appointment, to win the listing. Then all you've got to do is tip them to the 9 and the 10 so that they recommend you to absolutely everybody. But I think one of the big pieces, and I think there's a part 2 where we can delve deeper with you on this, Chris. I think you do so much at the front end that you've probably already got them to a 6 or a 7 before you've arrived. And I know you've gamified this, because I remember talking to you a few months ago where you said your next challenge is to secure a listing at 2.5% and secure the contract before I go on the appointment. And lo and behold, like 4 weeks later, you sent me a message and we're like, I've done it. And someone listed with you at 2.5% plus VAT before you went on the marketing appraisal. And I think that, to me, epitomizes how much of your process and how much of your conversion is handled at the beginning before you've even gone on the visit.
Yeah. And that's what works for me. And it works. Yeah, and it does work well. And I think if you want to secure good fees, I think you've got to be prepared to go the extra mile, to do everything you need to do to build trust, build a good relationship. Yes, you want them to like you, but they've got to make sure that they're getting value for money for the fee that you're charging, and that that feels comfortable for them when they sign the dotted line. It's not like, oh, this is really expensive. It has to be like, yeah, of course I'm going to sign. Like, yeah, this is value for money. End of.
I'm getting so much more than I would expect for half the price, for example.
Yeah.
Hopefully that's a lot of value for the listeners as well. I feel there's a lot of stuff that's been shared there that I guess many aren't doing, and lots of value there for those estate agents out there that want to charge better fees and have better conversions.
Absolutely. Yeah. But I do think there's a part 2 to this. I think there's a lot more that we can unpack with Chris, but I also am mindful that Chris has to go and do a viewing to sell a beautiful house. So we're going to wrap this episode up there, but we will book in a part 2 for this. But for those listening, if you've got any questions that you want to dig a little bit deeper into with Chris on the next episode, fire them into us, send them through so that we can then unpack more of what you want to hear from Chris's process. Chris, thank you for taking the time. Good luck on your viewing. And until next time, that is the Elite Agent Masterclass.